Anselm was born in the city of Aosta in modern-day northern Italy to noble parents. He received a classical education and, against the wishes of his father, went to join the Benedictine monastery at Bec in France. Because of his learning and clarity of teaching, he eventually became the abbot of the monastery in 1078. After the Norman conquest of England, the monastery at Bec gained some land holdings in England. While attending to these land holdings in England, King William II named Anselm the Archbishop of Canterbury in 1093. Because of this appointment, Anselm became embroiled in the medieval investiture controversy, which pitted the royal and religious authorities in a fight over who would appoint bishops. This fight caused him to be exiled twice from his see at Canterbury. In addition to the investiture controversy, he is known as the father of scholasticism, a method of theological argument made famous by St. Thomas Aquinas in the 1200s. Anselm defended the filioque Latin for and the Son, which was the doctrine that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son. He is also known for his ontological argument for the existence of God in his work, The Prosologion. Anselm is also known for his satisfaction theory of redemption, based on the lord-vassal obligations of the feudal system in the Cor Deus Homo. Dying in 1109, Anselm was named a Doctor of the Church in 1720 by Pope Clement XI.
Man cannot seek God unless God himself teaches him, nor find him unless he reveals himself. God created man in his image, that he might be mindful of him, think of him, and love him. The believer does not seek to understand, that he may believe, but he believes, that he may understand. For unless he believed, he would not understand. Prosologian chapter 1. Therefore, if the same, only true God, is signified when the Father alone, or the Son alone, is spoken of, and when both are named together, what is more clear, that when both are named together, than that when the Holy Spirit is said to proceed from the Father? He proceeds from the only true God, who is Father and Son. Accordingly, just as the Holy Spirit would be understood to proceed from the Son, had the Son said that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the only true God. When the Son said that he himself and the Father are the only true God. So when the Son says that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father, then without doubt, he signifies that the Holy Spirit proceeds from himself. Procession of the Holy Spirit, chapter 3. Thus, even the fool is compelled to grant that something greater than which cannot be thought exists in thought, because he understands what he hears, and whatever is understood exists in thought. And certainly, that greater than which cannot be understood cannot exist only in thought, for if it exists only in thought, it could also be thought of as existing in reality as well, which is greater. If, therefore, that than which greater cannot be thought exists in thought alone, then that than which greater cannot be thought turns out to be that than which something greater actually can be thought, but that is obviously impossible. Therefore, something than which greater cannot be thought undoubtedly exists, both in thought and in reality. Prosologian chapter 2. And that he might, in this mystery, show how much he loved us, he gave us that very flesh, which he had assumed for us, that we might eat it, and onwards to this day, fails not to administer it to us, in the sacrifice of his altar. Fourth meditation, number 21. God, who could create all things from nothing, would not remake his ruined creation without Mary. God, then, is the Father of the created world, and Mary, the Mother of the recreated world. God is the Father, by whom all things were given life, and Mary, the Mother through whom all things are given new life. Without God's Son, nothing could exist, without Mary's Son, nothing could be redeemed. Sermon 52. Upon whom would he more properly bestow the reward accruing from his death, than upon those for whose salvation, as right reason teaches, he became man? And for whose sake, as we have already said, he left an example of suffering death to preserve holiness? For surely, in vain, will men imitate him, if they be not also partakers of his reward. Or whom could he more justly make heirs of the inheritance, which he does not need, and of the superfluity of his possessions, than his parents and brethren? What more proper than that, when he beholds so many of them, weighed down by so heavy a debt, and wasting through poverty, in the depth of their miseries, he should remit the debt incurred by their sins, and give them what their transgressions had forfeited. Cordes Homo, chapter 19. So long as his soul dwells in the body, a man lives according to the flesh. And on its departure, he dies according to the same flesh. And it is equally true that, just as the soul supplies life to the flesh, so long as it remains in the flesh, so that flesh, in turn supplies the soul with life, so long as the flesh does the works of justice. Thus, soul and flesh are seen to act reciprocally, the soul working for the flesh, and the flesh for the soul. There is a difference, however, inasmuch as the soul is introduced to that life when it has shaken off the flesh, whereas the flesh will not enjoy it until reunited to that soul at the resurrection on the last day. Fifth meditation.